Hi, Gerhard Bloom here. After some delay, again, looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. Crime, violent crime across the United States, in Democrat-run city after Democrat-run city, crime is rising dramatically. Innocent people are dying, and leftist DAs are refusing to prosecute these criminals or releasing them on no bail. Criminals with lengthy history of violent crime are being released without bail into the communities, right? And innocent people are being preyed upon by these social monsters. Why? Well, in in this, as in everything, leftists are absolutely wrong. They're absolutely wrong. In their view, these criminals are a product of poverty, and poverty is the product of racism. So criminals are seen as the victims of a cruel, racist, capitalist system of oppression and exploitation, right? Again, except that they're wrong, right? As in every other issue of social consequence. And I know you've been told, for those who even concede the fact that the black over participation and representation in crime is itself an expression of poverty and poverty racism, right? Yes, for the social justice warrior, all unpleasant social disparities can, with some creative imagination, be attributed to racism. Well, again, wrong, right? The disparities between blacks and whites in their involvement in crime persist even after you control for income, right? This is cultural commitments, right? Valorizing criminal lifestyles, the gangster rap videos and music, valorizing crime and denigrating school achievement, and yes, single parenthood, right? It takes a man to teach a boy how to be a man, right? That is a fact. Women, with very few exceptions in relative terms, can't manage a young adolescent male on her own, right? They're weaker, shorter, and they just can't control a young adolescent male in the way that a father can. And that's a fact. That is a verifiable fact. Ask Mr. Google, right? He'll tell you, right? And as for the argument that poverty causes crime, consider San Francisco's Chinatown in the 1960s. It had the highest unemployment rate in the city, the lowest income, the highest proportion of substandard housing, the lowest educational attainment, and the highest poverty rate anywhere in the city. This was Chinatown, San Francisco, right? So these people were poor, desperately poor. How many hardened criminals did this squalid environment produce? Well, in 1965, there were 5 Chinese Americans in prisons in all of California. This is from Herrnstein, 1988. Herrnstein and, I forget the other author's name, did an encyclopedic study of crime, right? So 5 in this desperately poor community ended up in prison, right? The rest, hard, honest working. And you know what else? The Chinese community is amongst the highest achieving academically and in terms of income. They have a strong commitment to the family. They have a strong work ethic. They value respect for the law, right? So, in other words, the Chinese, in these dire circumstances, were underrepresented in violent crime, right? Underrepresented. So poverty is not the root cause of crime. Don't leftists understand that very wealthy people can also commit crimes, right? The crime and this income argument, right? The rates of violent crime in the United States and Britain rose dramatically in the 1960s and 70s. You know what else happened in the 1960s and 70s? the rate of poverty fell. So violent crime going up as incomes were rising, right? So to attribute crime to circumstances denies the criminal the status and dignity of a moral agent, right? The criminal makes a choice. Crime is caused by individuals choosing to put their selfish interests above the legitimate interests and rights of others, right? And do you think the inner city, the violent inner city thugs, do you think they're the latter-day Jean Valjean stealing loaf of bread to feed their families? You have to be deluded to believe this. In the inner city, vanishingly few fathers provide any support to the various mothers of their various children, right? The mother's welfare, right? Fathers, non-existent, don't provide any material support. So in the criminal, he is victimizing other blacks in that community. You know, the weak and the vulnerable, they're being victimized. And of course, we've now defunded the police, right? In millions of dollars in individual police budgets, right? Los Angeles, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, they've slashed police budgets, and overwhelmingly the victim of black crime, other blacks, right? This is a fact, right? There, and in the inner city, for these young men who desperately poor, no, think again. There are numerous job placement programs. There are training programs available. And so this is the criminal choosing their selfish interests over and against decent and honest people, right? The fact is, and it is also a fact, that the vast majority of poor black people in the inner city are honest, and they have a commitment to the rule of law and honesty and integrity, right? Theodore Dalrymple observed this commitment of the poor to their moral self-worth, and it was expressed at a church meeting he happened to attend. It wasn't the police's fault, nor racism, or the system, or capitalism. It was the failures of sinners to acknowledge any moral authority higher than personal whim. And in asserting this, the congregation was asserting its own freedom and dignity. Poor and despised as its members may have been, they were still human enough to decide for themselves between right and wrong. They offered hope to others too, to do good, right? No one had to wait until there was perfect justice in the world or the circumstances were right before he decided to do good himself. This is Theodore Dalrymple's from his book, Life at the Bottom. Brilliant book, brilliant author, by the way. I've read at least a handful, half a dozen of his books. They're outstanding. Speaking of outstanding books, check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. You might not care about this poisonous social justice ideology. It cares about you. Every aspect of your identity needs to be critically interrogated. Your sex, your gender, your race, your religion, your political views. It's coming after your family, right? It wants to disrupt the nuclear family, right? Absolutely poisonous. Do check out the book, and you will be shocked. But I don't lie to you, right? I will not lie to you, unlike the mainstream media, right? They are lying. So thank you very much for your time and attention. See you soon.